We're going to be in Genesis chapter 35. How many learned some valuable lessons in 25? How many is already finding yourself learning a new lesson in 26? 35. I almost titled this message Iwi because my parents kind of coined that. I-I-W-I-I. It is what it is. But I figured if I put Iwi, y'all wouldn't know what that was. So I'm just telling you now. This could also be titled Iwi. There are some things in our life that we can alter. There are some other things that we can't. And it behooves us to know the difference. Here's an example. Some of you have known from a young age, wow. Some of you have known from a young age that the call of God was on your life for ministry. And you've been playing Jonah your whole life. Run, 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 and run some more. In fact, that's become a way of life. Yes. And just because you've been running doesn't mean God changed his mind and said, oh, well, since they're running, then I'm not gonna enforce that. We'll go ahead and just change the will, plan, and purpose of me for them. It doesn't work that way. His mandate and his plan for your life is his mandate and his plan for your life, no matter how much you try to flub that up. I know of a couple that they got married years and years ago. And the man knew he was called to ministry, but the woman didn't want it. Guess who's not in ministry today? But guess what? Call didn't change. Imagine the frustration of waking up every day, working a 9 to 5 that you know you're not called to do. Matters who you marry, by the way. They will help make or they will break you. It matters who you marry. Life is a journey. How many would agree with that statement? Life is a journey. Who did not agree with that statement? Life is a journey. If you've ever taken a long trip, call it a 1,200-mile trip, and you've gone the first 100 miles, and you're thinking, Buc-ee's, somewhere, please. Been 100 miles already. The first 100 miles doesn't always look like the last 100 miles. In fact, many instances it doesn't. Unless you're in New Mexico, that land is just ugly, okay? At least down I-40. All right, I'll say that. I heard that there's some nice on. So anybody going to Guyman, do the speed limit. Just set the cruise and worship Jesus. It'll be good. So journey in life sometimes is the same way. We think we want to make shortcuts because I don't like this. This is taking too long. This place I'm in has been so flat and so uneventful. And when we try to force the clock on God, that's when we make Ishmaels. So for those of you that don't like the process, I'm going to say this too. Man, I've got to get to my notes eventually. This is why so many people who say, oh, well, God's called me to ministry, so she's driving versus when I'm driving. Because when I'm driving, I'm focused on the road. When she's driving, I'm looking everywhere but the road. So there's a couple of journeys happening right now. There's your individual journey where you're focused on the road, but then there's the ship called No Excuses Ministries that sometimes you just get sick of looking at ocean. Are we ever getting anywhere? How do we know that we've moved? Enjoy the journey. Because when we dock, we dock. When it stops, it stops. So enjoy the ride, okay? How many's ever prayed the prayer, God, what are you doing and what am I supposed to do next? Please make sense of this to me. Put this in perspective because I ain't getting it. How many's ever prayed that? How many's never prayed that? How many didn't vote? So it begins. So in Genesis, ultimately I'm going to get to chapter 35. But in this chapter, Jacob is leading his family on a journey. 3 times in that chapter we read the words, and they journeyed. And so we're going to look at the chapter in its entirety, not all today. I'm going to get halfway through today. And we're going to see if the Lord doesn't speak to us about aspects of his journey in comparison to our journey so we can learn some things about how to journey well. Does that make sense? So the first event actually occurs in the previous chapter. It's a long chapter. There's some aspects of that I really don't want to have to discuss in open company. So I'm just going to say read Genesis 34 on your own. I'm going to allude to it here. The first lesson that we learn from Jacob is he had a conflict with a group of people called the Hittites. And he had spent over 20 years living with his uncle Laban. I don't know how many of you would like to spend 20 years living with your uncle, but he did. And he married both of his wives there, Rachel and Leah. And he had children. He accumulated livestock. And at the end of 20 years, God told him, he said, return to your homeland, which is Canaan. Go home. So on his way to a town called Succoth, that was in the territory of the Hittites, and that was on his way home. It's about 40 miles north of Jerusalem and north of where he was supposed to go, which was Bethel. Bethel is in Canaan. And so he stopped there in this town called Succoth. I could play with that. It'd be funny, but I'm not going to do that here. Stop it over there. So instead of making it 40 miles more into Bethel, he stopped in this city and he started living, listen carefully to how I'm going to say this, he started living short of full obedience. Oh. He didn't stop living, but he started living short of obedience. And I'm sure he told himself as he's crawling into bed at night, I'm on my way to accomplish what God has called me to do. I'm on my way. He wasn't on his way. He bought land, got a house, filled it with furniture, got a pet goldfish. He was not on his way. He was established 40 miles away from what God said to do. And some terrible things began to happen. He had his only daughter named Dinah. And while there, she went to visit with some of the other girls there and met the son of the ruling sheik, and the guy raped her. The son of the sheik of the Hittites had his way with her. And in retaliation, Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, got him back. So let me just tell you the short version of that whole chapter. So the son of the sheik told his dad, hey, I had my way with this lady, but I've since found I'm in love with her. So I want you to work out an arrangement where I can marry her. So the son sends the dad, the sheik, to go talk to Jacob and explain, my son wants to marry your daughter, whom he's violated. Jacob, knowing his sons are not home, used some wisdom and didn't create tumult over this until the sons got back. And when they got back, they made an arrangement, said, listen, number one, we're pretty upset that you violated our sister. Secondly, you need to understand, why in the world would we cause her to marry somebody who is not circumcised? If you don't know what that word means, please look it up. I don't want to deal with that here. So they said, listen, if you and all the men, all the Hittites will circumcise yourselves, then we'll go ahead and intermarry. Our daughters with your sons, your daughters with our sons, and we'll share amongst ourselves. It'll be a great thing. Well, this son of the sheik wanted Dinah so bad, he went back and proposed this to his people, and they said, okay, we'll do it. So they did. Now, something about circumcision, it costs you something. It's painful, and it's painful not for a moment, but for quite a while after. And so on the third day, when they're trying to heal, the sons of Jacob go in because they know they can't defend themselves, and they kill all the men. How many of the men? All of the men. And then plunder the whole camp and take all the women and children and make them their own. Jacob, realizing what has happened, said, boys, what have you done? You put a big target on my back, and I'm now in a position where I might lose everything, because when other people find out what you boys did, they're going to band together. We're not that big a number. They're going to come and take it out on us. Notice what he didn't do. He didn't say, thank you for defending your sister. Thank you for righting a wrong. That's not what he said. He said, you put a target on my back. So in Genesis 34, verse 30, then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, you have troubled me by making me obnoxious amongst the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And since I'm few in number, they will gather themselves together against me and kill me. Kill who? Me. You've done this to me. He said, I shall be destroyed, my household and I. But they said, should he treat our sister like a prostitute? So there's two life lessons I want you to get out of this very first point of the conflict with the Hittites. Number one, it was Jacob's incomplete obedience that left his family vulnerable to problems. Dinah would never have met the sheik's son. The sheik's son would have never raped her. There would have never been an agreement of circumcision. There would not have been a slaughter of all the men. None of that would have happened if Jacob had went 40 miles more to complete and fulfill the word that God gave him. But because he was 40 miles short, his whole family was opened up to disarray. Oh, y'all, well, it's me. It only affects me. That terrible theology died a long time ago. You need to catch up. Your sins not only affect you, but all those that are under you. You might want to even go back and read the story of Jonah. Jonah was in disobedience, got on a boat with people who didn't know he was in disobedience, and they still lost all of their cargo. Why? Because of the disobedience of the man who knew God. Jacob was getting too cozy with the ungodly world around him. Oh, Jesus, help me. Jacob got cozy with the ungodly. He got cozy with the ungodly system. He got cozy with the ungodly customs. He got comfortable in his apathy. He got comfortable in his disobedience. There's a lot of places that you could go to church that will encourage your coziness. Because when you are encouraged to stay cozy and 40 miles away from your destiny, then you don't mind opening your wallet and your resources and all that stuff, because now you found somebody who's in agreement with, watch this, with what you want to do, not with what you're called to do, not with what you're told to do, not with what you're commanded to do, but you like people that will affirm your disobedience and your coziness with everything that's anti-God. I truly believe numbers would never be a problem in this house if I incubated your coziness with apathy and 40 miles away from your destiny? Would you find somebody who says, the word says this, so that's what we're doing? The word said don't do that, so we're not doing that no more. The word says do this, we haven't been doing that, but now we're going to do it because the word says that. You find somebody who does that, and it doesn't always grow to the extent that the coziness does. Because not everybody who says they love Jesus understands what that means. You know how many people said, oh, I love you, baby, just to get married? I got to be honest. Serving Jesus is single-handedly the most difficult prospect of my existence. Difficult. Because my flesh wanna, and God said no. And my flesh wanna, and God said no. And then my flesh don't wanna, and God said, you better. I don't know who I'm talking to in the room today, but if you find yourself cozy with things that are anti-God and anti-Christ, if you find yourself justifying why it's okay to stay 40 miles away from what God has called you to do because you're on the way, then you need to hear this loud and clear. God used the conflict with the Hittites to separate him from ungodly people. God used the conflict to separate him from ungodly people. Did God cause Dinah to get violated? No. But he used the violation to draw a permanent line in the sand that caused Jacob's family to do what he didn't have the guts to do. Y'all ain't hearing this at all. God used the conflict that already happened. He used the conflict to force them to do what he had told them to do before. I just don't know why bad things keep happening. I just don't know why I can't seem to get ahead. I just don't know why maybe God's using the nonsense and the junk that has occurred because of our disobedience in order to remind us, the bad stuff wouldn't have happened there in Succoth, aptly named, if you hadn't stayed there. So God used the conflict to separate him from the ungodly people and also to protect him from something even more negative. Sometimes a negative event can protect us from something even more negative. I'm going to say that again. Sometimes a negative event, God can use a negative event to prevent or protect us from something happening that's even more negative. How many of you heard the song, I'll praise you in this storm, and I'll lift my hands? You remember the scripture? In everything. It never said because of everything, but said in the midst of everything, give thanks. I'm not necessarily thanking God for the bad junk, but in the midst of going through the bad junk, I'm thanking God that he's faithful and loving and preserving and protecting and all the stuff, right? I'm in the midst of nonsense. I'm keeping my focus on Jesus. Okay? So incomplete obedience leaves your whole family open to problems. And God can still use the conflict to separate you and protect you from even worse happening. God's not limited. All things work together for the good. How in the world can somebody being violated work together for my good? Because it got you away from the people that if they violated her, who else are they going to violate? What else are they going to take? And how far away from God are they going to take you? So God used a bad situation to protect them from more bad stuff happening. Let's go back to Jonah real quick. What happened when they found Jonah and they cast lots and said, okay, it's me. I'm in disobedience. And so Let's throw all the junk overboard and see if that doesn't suffice God. Well, that didn't work. And Jonah said, well, there's no other thing. You have to throw me overboard. What happened? Watch this. When the people on the ship who didn't even know that they had disobedience on board, when they removed the disobedience, watch this. When they found out it was disobedience and they removed it, what happened to their ship? The storm stopped. What's the lesson? You tired of the storms? Throw the disobedience overboard. The storms came because of disobedience. Get rid of the disobedience and second life lesson. Jacob received a word from the Lord. Where did he receive a word from the Lord the first time? You remember? A place called Bethel. How many was here the last 2-3 times that Nigel McNeil's preached? Remember him talking about Bethel, Jacob's ladder, open heaven? Okay then. So, a word from the Lord is a sovereign grace. God does not have to speak to us, but he does. Jacob and his family, they made a mess of things, and yet God still speaks to Jacob. I'm going to say, even when you're in disobedience, God many times will still speak to you to give you a way out of the mess that you created. So events have disciplined him and prepared him for this visit. Those events conditioned him and prepared him for a word from the Lord. It's not just people who are just totally in love with Jesus, in complete obedience before God, who tithe regularly, don't miss a beat, who show up to clean the church and set things right. It's not just those people who get a word. Sometimes bad situations become like a meat tenderizer in our life that tenderize a hard heart, that cause us to now be open to a word from the Lord that we never would have listened to beforehand. I'm not saying God is causing the bad things to happen. In fact, I'm definitely saying that he's not in these particular instances, but he will use the bad situations in order to drive home the point. Say, you're bleeding now. You want to listen now? How many of you ever had kids that kept trying to touch a hot pot? Leave that alone. Don't touch that. Don't touch that. Don't touch that. About the 6th or 7th time, you're like, go ahead. Ah! I told you. I told you. I think God is that way sometimes with us. Leave them alone. Don't mess with them. Don't talk to them. Release them. Get out of that relationship. Don't do that. Don't. Fine, go on ahead. Oh, God, it's so bad. What? I just don't understand. You going to listen to me now? So God will allow bad things to happen and then use those bad things to get your attention so that you'll now listen to him. If that makes sense to anybody? Yeah. So you have two choices. Listen to God and avoid problems, or God will use the problems that you created to cause you to want to listen to God. Either way, we're back to listening to God. Well, all that's happened with his daughter being violated and the slaughter of the Hittites, all of this caused him to be humbled. You want to know one of the big reasons that we don't obey God? We're arrogant, prideful. This is free. And I'm not going to say who this is. But if you see people walk around and they have this, you can take it to the bank that they are in pride. You heard it here. Take it to the bank. Okay? Nobody who has an humble heart walks around just like they have to look down their nose to see anybody that they're talking to. I'm going to say this. There are certain characteristics that you recognize are a result of a presence. If I took a thumbtack and poked Robbie right in the arm, what do y'all suppose he'd do? Ow. And the first thing before he punched me would be to, ah! And then after it dawns on him what happened, then he'll come to punch me. Right? Think about that. Depends on what side of the tracks he was brought up on. Okay. So when something powerful happens that gets our attention, we want to react to that. If there was no pain, we might not react.
Come on. That's good.
How many of your spouse been sitting next to you and you're so engrossed in the message you're not paying attention? They go, hey, 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 hey. And you're just oblivious. Finally they go, hey, what? Sorry about that. Don't punch me. We get a reaction because why? It hurt. God will use pain. You may cause it, God will use it. Thank you. I appreciate that. So in Genesis chapter 35, verse 1 begins with the word then. Then. When? When he is debased, embarrassed, and humbled by all that's transpired, then. Now a divine timing has happened again. In this context, that word then is when God chooses to speak to Jacob. Why? Because he didn't listen to him enough the first time. So he lets him get humbled, and then he begins to speak to him. Some of y'all say, I come to this church all the time. I see people getting words all the time. I don't understand why I don't get a word. Why is it my turn to get a word? Maybe you're in the midst of rebellion that God's going to have to allow you to get humbled and embarrassed and broken so you can hear it. Go back to Jonah. Jonah, go to Nineveh. No. Jonah said, go to Nineveh. No. Jonah, go to Nineveh. I don't like those people. Jonah, I said, go to Nineveh. No, because I know what you're going to do. You're going to have me go in there and cry foul, and then you're going to give them grace. I ain't doing it. So God prepared a fish. And it cost the people he was in a relationship with. Listen, this is very careful. Listen very careful to this. You got to be careful who you're in a relationship with, because you don't know, you might be entertaining a Jonah as a new relationship in your life, and then wonder why things are going badly for you. Be careful who you embark in new relationships with. You better know something about them. You better hear from God on them. You make an alliance with somebody who's made an alliance with the devil. What do you think is going to happen in your life? This is good stuff. I'm going to have to go back and listen to this. Then God said to Jacob, arise, go up to Bethel and dwell there. Dwell where? There. Bethel is what? There. And make an altar there unto God, who appeared to you when you fled from the face of Esau, your brother. I want you to notice something. When God told him earlier in chapter 35, he said, go to Canaan. He gets 40 miles away, buys land, buys a house, builds a family, all this mess. His daughter gets violated. They slaughter the Hittites. They're now on the move. God came back to him, watch this, with the same word. It was the same word. Go to Bethel. Bethel is a city in Canaan. Where did God tell him to go? Canaan. He said, go to Canaan, build an altar. He gets to Succoth, builds an altar in Succoth. An altar is a good thing. He did a good thing in a bad place. He did a good thing where God told him not necessarily to do it. So he says, now let me give you the instructions I gave you years ago. Go back where I told you to go, where you stopped on the way. Go there now, and there build me an altar. I'm not even going to get as far as I thought I was going to. I want you to hear this. Obedience has a cost, but so does disobedience. You're going to pay the toll. It's going to cost you something. But watch this. Obedience cost is your choice. Disobedience's cost is not. If I'm functioning in obedience, I know what it's going to cost me, and I go into it saying, I'm willing to pay that price to obey God. But if you disobey God, he decides what the cost is. I don't know if I can. I'll try. If you function in obedience, you know going into it, there's a cost, and you pay it willingly because you want to be in obedience. But if you function in disobedience, God sets the toll. Disobedience in my heart and mind typically costs you far more than obedience ever would. Doesn't mean that obedience was cheap. It just means that disobedience is more expensive. So he said, go to Bethel, make an altar there. He said, remember, Jacob, I protected you then. I'll protect you now. But you need to fully obey me. God's responsibility to protect you is only on the arm or the sleeve of full obedience. God is not obligated to protect you in disobedience. In fact, many times God will not protect you in disobedience so that he can use the end result of that disobedience to make you tender enough to obey what he said to do in the first place. Lord, help me say this right. There are some people that come here that to them, this is sucketh. And it sucketh because it's 40 miles away from where God told them to go. There are other people that this is Bethel.
Yes.
The place didn't change, but the act of obedience or disobedience did.
Come on.
That's why you can have some people sit in the same room and go through hell on earth, sitting next to people who are going blessing to blessing to blessing to blessing. Because for some people, this is Bethel. This is where God has called them to be. And for other people, this is not where God has called them to be. And they're only here because they see other people getting blessed, and they're trying to horn in on their blessing instead of just functioning in obedience to get their own. So for some, it sucketh. For others, it's Bethel. That's why it's important. That's why it's important for you to know where you're at. It ain't that funny.
Actually, it is. Say it again.
No. Hey, what'd your pastor preach about today? Oh, you'll never guess. Y'all need Jesus really bad. So obedience and disobedience have a cost. God's instructions didn't change, but Jacob's obedience did. I want you to hear that God's grace is amazing in our lives, even when we made a mess of our life. His grace doesn't end because we're in disobedience. His grace is there, but part of his grace is to allow it to hurt and allow us to bleed so that we'll pay attention to what it is that he's saying. He's patiently reminding us of what he's already told us to do. You know why this is so important to me? Because I asked you guys a couple weeks ago, I said, how many of you right now are in willful disobedience to what God has already told you to do? And about a third of the people in this room lifted their hands. As a pastor, that's disturbing. Because I'm saying, God, did you send us 30 Jonahs? Because I don't want to lose stuff because they didn't want to obey you. Yes, Lord, I'm going to say that too. That's why sometimes when a Jonah goes overboard, I don't throw a dinghy. Because sometimes the presence of a Jonah will cause the whole ship to be lost. Y'all got to hear what I'm saying. It's a little tougher of a word than it was when I was preparing it. I think we can only handle 2 lessons today. We'll pick this up on Thursday. So for those of you that are perpetually 40 miles away from full obedience to God, please understand it's on you, especially if you're the head of the house. If you're the head of the house, you have opened up your whole household to calamity because you're functioning in less than, thus saith the Lord. It's funny watching y'all, because when I say a word like that, you see people thinking they're all slick going. I'm going to say this. If the head of your house is functioning in willful disobedience and 40 miles out from where you know they're called to be, and you say nothing, it may well be that if you approach them, if I'm Carol right now and I say, listen, Robbie, you're 40 miles out from where God told you to be. You already confessed that he gave you this word and told you da-da-da. You're hanging out everywhere you know you're not supposed to be. I believe God will honor Carol in the midst of his calamity. I'm saying Carol's still going to have to suffer some because she's tied to a disobedient guy. But I don't think it'd be near where it would be if she just got in agreement with him in his disobedience. There's a reason why God put the people together that he put together. Not necessarily the people that you're putting yourselves together. I'm talking about the ones that God put together. If God put you together, there's a reason, because he puts something inside them that really does complete and augment and help you. But you got to be open to it. You ever been with somebody, maybe driving somewhere that you've never been? Oh, it's at such and such so-and-so address. Yeah, I'll get us there. And they got a GPS. You know, you can I'll get us there. If God's giving you somebody with a GPS, thank God that God gave somebody to you that has a GPS instead of giving you a paper map that's outdated. Cherish what he put in them. Because I promise God has put something in you that they need as well. It's hard to use a two-man saw with one person. I'm not doing that one again either. So if God has brought somebody in your life, know that he did that on purpose so that you guys would work together to get things done for him. Does that make sense? Hallelujah. Who learned something? Who already knew it all before I preached it? We're all on a journey. Please hear my heart. When I'm releasing a message like this, don't think that I'm the snooty guy looking down my nose. God preaches this to me before I get to preach it to you. I have to go through this and go, oh, Lord, I got to fix that. Because I can't say this until God's worked that. Y'all see what I'm saying? So he's working things in me too. I have not arrived. Watch, I'm on a journey too. I'm not here to criticize your journey, but I am here to say sometimes, hey, Robbie, you're about 5 years behind camping out here when God's called you 40 miles that way. Love you, but. And somebody will say, that's mean of a pastor to do. Is it? Is it? Or is it gracious? Gracious. Hear what I'm saying? That's why we got to have people in our life that we really do have a trust in. Yes. And a confidence in their ability to hear and discern from God. It's important. Here's the problem. We do that all too often and all too well, in that we put all of our faith and trust in the person who hears from God instead of hearing from God for ourselves. My part in your life would be to help you saying, hey, Robbie, I know that word you got and it's right on, but you're just a little bit off. Come over this way. There you go. There you go. Now keep going now. My job is to help keep you on the path. But sometimes when you put the blinders on and just kind of pin the tail on the donkey, sometimes I have to go in there and just say, listen, cut it out. Because you're pinning the tail not on the donkey, but on the foreheads of other people that don't have anything to do with what you're doing. Does that make sense? Let me pray for you, and then we'll go from there. Father, thank you for the scriptures that you have told us is to teach us lessons so that we don't have to learn it the hard way. Forgive us, Lord, for our stubbornness. Forgive us, Lord, for saying, I'm going to do it the way I'm going to do it, instead of just saying, Lord, I submit to however you want me to do it. You say it, I'll do it. You point, and I'll go. I'm asking today that regardless of where we find ourselves, if we're debased and embarrassed and ashamed and humbled by things that have happened in our life, may we take this moment to respond to you and say, okay, Lord, I hear you. And I'm willing now to submit when I wasn't willing before. Help us, God, to see where we're at accurately. And Lord, if this is 40 miles out from where they're called to be, I ask today, Lord, that you move them sovereignly 40 miles out to where they're supposed to be. Because there's a crop of people 40 miles out from here that this is their Bethel. So I'm asking today, God, that you bring people together that have a common purpose, common understanding, common goal, common pursuit of God, a common belief in the miraculous, supernatural signs, wonders, and miracles, and deliverance. We want who you want to be here. God, if this is not our there, then take us to it. If this is our there, then cause us, Lord, to root deep and to produce much fruit. I give you all the honor, glory, and praise for it in the matchless name of Jesus. And all those in agreement said, amen. Amen. For those that caught any part of this stream, thank you so very, very much. Go back and listen to the whole thing. I think you'll find a little humor, and you might get a little bit encouraged. If you're looking for a church home, come hang out with us. 2632 Southwest 39th in Oklahoma City, every Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m., every Thursday evening at 6:45 p.m. For those of you that are catching this message live, tomorrow evening, 6:30 p.m. here at the church in the gymnasium, we're having our men's group, our men's fellowship. We'll be providing a meal, so come enjoy the meal, a little worship, and an encouraging, prompting, honest word from men.